The problem of low status for women in South Korea is not a new phenomenon. In fact, the concept of sexism has deeply ingrained itself in Korean culture and national ideology in its long history. During a long period before the unification of Silla, there was a relatively equal status between men and women in Korea. In ancient times, Korean women were revered as gods of abundance and the earth, and their reproductive abilities were seen as a mysterious power. During the Three Kingdoms period of the Korean peninsula, women held significant positions due to the development of the textile industry. Women were the main labor force in textile production and played a crucial role in the industry. During this period, women with exceptional weaving skills were known as craftswomen. Because women played a significant role in economic activities, their economic status was not lower than that of men. In terms of marriage and family, the status of Korean women at that time was much higher than in later periods, and they had certain freedoms in choosing their partners. The Book of Northern History records, "The customs are indulgent, and promiscuity is not considered shameful. There are many courtesans, and husbands are not constant. They gather and play at night without regard for social status. When it comes to marriage, as long as a man and a woman are pleased with each other, they can be together. The man's family only needs to send pigs and wine, without any formal marriage ceremony." In Goguryeo, the marriage of common women was called husband's house marriage, where the woman's family built a small house behind their own house, and the newlywed couple lived there until the woman gave birth to a child and the husband could bring her back home. In Silla, women also had more freedom in terms of divorce and remarriage. The significant change in the status of women began after the unification of the Korean peninsula by Silla in 668 AD. This period was a transformative era in the relationships between ancient East Asian countries, and some scholars refer to it as the East Asian world era of great transformation and integration. The transmission of the myth of Dangun, which is the oldest myth of the Korean ethnic group, marked a turning point from a matrilineal clan system to a patrilineal society. In ancient times, the heavenly god Hwan-in knew that his son Hwan-ung wanted to descend to the mortal world. He selected the locations of Samwang and Taebaek and gave Hwan-ung 3 heavenly seals as symbols of heavenly immortals. Hwan-ung led 3,000 followers and descended to the top of Mount Taebaek, where they established a divine market, and Hwan-ung proclaimed himself as the great king Hwan-ung. Later, Hwan-ung married a bear woman and gave birth to Dangun, who became the founding monarch of ancient Korea. In this myth, the lineage of the gods is as follows: Hwan-in, a heavenly emperor, Hwan-ung, Hwan-in's son, and Dangun, the son of Hwan-ung and the bear woman. This to some extent indicates the recognition of men as the highest authority in society. At the same time, Confucianism spread widely on the Korean peninsula. In order to consolidate their power, rulers further strengthened the patriarchal system by adopting the concept of the superiority of men and the inferiority of women. The balance of social status had already started to tilt towards men. According to the records of the Three Kingdoms, in the 8th year of King Munmu's reign in 668 AD, an envoy was sent to Tang Dynasty China, and although the envoy returned, there was an imperial decree that prohibited the offering of women. This indicates that Silla had used the practice of offering women to the Tang Dynasty multiple times. Although the Tang Dynasty issued a ban on offering women, it was repeatedly violated. However, compared to later periods, during the Goryeo dynasty in the year 918 to 1392, women on the Korean peninsula still had some commendable rights in terms of property inheritance and freedom in divorce. But when history entered the era of the Joseon dynasty in the year between 1392 and 1910, the patriarchal family system was strengthened, and gender differentiation in society reached its peak. The Joseon dynasty's Jingguo Dadian institutionalized the patriarchal system and established the absolute dominance of men in society. The 3 obediences became the basic moral norms that women had to abide by. The Jingguo Dadian also included laws such as the imprisonment law for children of remarried women, which prohibited the descendants of remarried women from participating in the civil service examination, and the offspring of women of low status from rising above their social status. The comprehensive restrictions on women's status were even more severe than the Neo-Confucianism. During this era, the characters obedience and chastity became the fundamental standards for measuring women's moral values. Korean women at that time were not entitled to have their own names, and were often referred to by their family or household names. Women could not be the head of the household, and after marriage, they were removed from their natal family's household register. Daughters' names were not recorded in the family genealogy, but the names of sons-in-law were recorded. In addition, women were not allowed to go out freely, and if caught, they would be subjected to 100 lashes, and their male family members would also be punished. The state also officially rewarded virtuous women. During the Japanese invasions of Korea in the late 16th century, the number of women who sacrificed themselves far exceeded the number of filial sons and loyal subjects. Some women were captured and humiliated, and after the rebellion was suppressed, it was not uncommon for the two classes of scholars and officials to divorce their wives due to the loss of virtue caused by the humiliation of their wives. In order to maintain their own reputation, in most cases, female relatives played the role of supervisors or even perpetrators, using cruel methods to deal with women who did not adhere to the traditional virtues. In the 7th year of King Yeongjo's reign in 1731, a noblewoman named Kim, after her husband's death, gave birth to a child, but her family forced her to commit suicide. Women at that time, whether noble or commoners, were influenced by this distorted concept of chastity. Furthermore, the confinement of women and the emphasis on hierarchy on the Korean peninsula also exhibited certain precedent characteristics in history. As long as a law was established by previous monarchs, subsequent monarchs often inherited it, such as the prohibition of promoting concubines to the rank of middle palace. The consequences of the disputes between the two noble classes over laws and ideologies often resulted in a further reduction in women's status rather than an improvement. Therefore, during the more than 500 years of the Joseon dynasty and into modern times, the status of Korean women did not see significant improvement. Before the enactment of the nationality law in 1909, women still did not have formal names. It was only after the enactment of the nationality law that daughters' names began to be recorded in family genealogies, but it was still stipulated that women could not be the head of the household. Today, Korean women are still subject to the constraints and confinement of the traditional cultural concept of hierarchy. The modern Korean society has never launched a subversive challenge to the patriarchal system. Even though the feminist movement and women's rights have gained momentum in Korea, the social and cultural atmosphere, shaped by centuries of sedimentation, permeates all aspects of Korean society and has molded the character and mindset of the Korean people, becoming an integral part of Korean spiritual civilization. It is difficult to completely change this mindset. Today, feminist ideas and the women's rights movement are awakening Korean women. With increasing levels of education, women are becoming more economically independent. In the process of social modernization, more women prioritize self-fulfillment over traditional roles, challenging Korea's deeply rooted patriarchal system. In the late 1990s, the Asian financial crisis hit, causing many Korean men to lose their jobs. The long-standing dominance of men was challenged, while more educated Korean women stepped out of their homes and participated in the economy. Men had to compete with women for job opportunities, leading to a delicate balance between genders and increasing tension in Korean society. In 2001, the Korean Constitutional Court revoked the provision that had been in effect since 1961, which granted a maximum of 5% bonus points to retired men in civil service exams and job interviews. This decision sparked panic among many men and fueled their resentment towards the feminist movement. In 2005, the Korean Constitutional Court abolished the clauses in the Civil Code and the Household Registration Act that stated only men could be registered as heads of households. Additionally, Korea began implementing menstrual leave for women. These changes triggered a surge of anti-women sentiment in Korean society. After the release of the movie Ode to My Father, opinions on the film were polarized between men and women. Male internet users gave it an average score of 2.84, while female internet users rated it as high as 9.5. Male commenters described it as a delusional celebration, and some even directed their anger towards the actress who played the lead role, attacking her without reason. Some internet users even wrote a book titled Ode to My Son, mimicking the format of Ode to My Father, depicting the social pressures faced by Korean men and the increasing conflict between genders. The majority of Korean men oppose feminism and see themselves as victims of the women's movement. They express discriminatory and insulting remarks towards women in online spaces. This, in turn, pushes some feminist organizations in Korea towards extreme positions, where they derive pleasure from insulting and mocking men. Some extreme feminists even advocate for not giving birth to males. The confrontation between the two sides has intensified the negative attitude towards marriage and childbirth in Korean society. In 2020, the Nth Room incident shocked the world. It involved the illegal filming of sexual videos of women, including minors, which were then sold to paying viewers in chat rooms. According to Korean media reports, at least 74 women, including 16 minors, were victims of the Nth Room incident, with the youngest victim being only 11 years old. The victims included famous actresses and former members of girl groups. The criminal activities lasted for 6 months and involved the participation of 260,000 people, causing a public outcry. These successive incidents have further eroded trust between genders and deepened the divide. Moreover, the fear of domestic violence is a significant factor preventing women from entering marriage. However, in the eyes of Korean men who strongly harbor anti-women sentiment, everything is the fault of women. Regarding the Nth Room incident, one Korean internet user commented, "I didn't commit a crime. I simply paid to watch adult content. Is that wrong? Instead of punishing the participants of the Nth Room, we should start by punishing those sluts who uploaded their own videos. If they hadn't uploaded the videos, there wouldn't have been 260,000 victims. Their fault is greater." This atmosphere of tearing each other apart between men and women further instills fear in women, damages their collective sense of security, and undermines their desire for marriage and childbirth. It can be said that Korea's population problem is closely related to the prevalent gender opposition in society.